Today we're talking about some hidden and not so hidden tech cards that are going to help you beat the meta in the post-Phantom Nightmare competitive Yu-Gi-Oh formats. What's potion? You got Matt here and welcome back to another competitive Yu-Gi-Oh video. If you're anything like me, sometimes you'll just go over to Yugioh Pro deck and take a look at some of the topping deck lists from the past few events. Sometimes you end up seeing some really cool cards in the main deck, but most of the time those interesting cards are going to be in the side deck. I wanted to talk about some of the best tech cards in the format today, some of which are really widely known right now and others are much more of a mystery. So if you're excited for the video, then make sure to smash the like button. If this video hits 200 likes, then I'll make this type of video a part of my regular content rotation, and just because I'll also bring you an awesome tier list on the best side deck cards in the game today. Also, if you like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, including deck profiles, combo guides, meta discussions, and videos just like this one, you're gonna love this channel. So make sure to subscribe and help us reach our new goal of 7,500 subscribers. But with that being said, here are some crazy techs to beat the meta. Let's jump into it. So like I said, today I want to talk about some of the coolest tech cards that we're seeing in the new Snake Eye Fire King format, some of which you already might know and others that are much more obscure. I also wanted to take the time and explain why these cards are seeing play, because a lot of the time we have these deck lists, we see the tech cards, we don't know why they're being played. Also, every single one of these tech cards I'm going to be showing you today has been represented in multiple different top 8 deck lists. And I do want to say as well that this format here is going to be either a tier 0 or tier 0.5 format, with Snake Eye Fire King being the best deck of the format. So for that reason, a lot of the tech cards here are going to be tailored to actually beating Snake Eye Fire King or to be played within Snake Eye Fire King. And if I show you a tech card that you've never seen before and you plan on playing, then make sure to let me know down in the comments. But that being said, let's get started with our first tech card being the absolute most common one you're going to be seeing, and that's going to be Soul Release. Soul Release is being cited mostly for the Snake Eye and Fire King matchups, but it's also pretty decent against decks like Labyrinth, Branded, and Voiceless Voice. It's a really simple spell card that just targets up to 5 cards in either graveyard and banishes them. Now that may not seem like it does a ton of work, but in this format it's really good. Just think of either the Snake Eye or Fire King endboards. Both decks usually have Promethean Princess in the graveyard with usually a bunch of level 1 Snake Eye monsters. It's possible there's also a Garunix in the graveyard too, and of course it's really likely there'll also be an Ambler Whale and a Flamberge Dragon on the field with an IP Masquerena. If you Soul Release, you can target the Princess, the Garunix, and usually the level 1 fires in the graveyard to banish them, and there's nothing that they can do about it. The endboard doesn't commonly put up spell and trap negation unless they're playing a Baronne line. They also can't respond with Princess or Garunix in the graveyard because you haven't summoned or destroyed anything. And because you're getting rid of all the level 1 fire monsters, Snake Eye Flamberge Dragon can't summon them back, which means they lose out on so much recovery for the next turn. It's not a perfect solution since most of the time you're going to be pairing Soul Release with Triple Tactics Thrust, and if you go for Thrust to search for the Soul Release, they can just chain the effect of IP before you activate Soul Release to be able to then link off the Flamberge Dragon, go into SP, trigger the Flamberge Dragon to bring back the level 1s, so at least they have some follow-up. And even if they don't respond to the Soul Release, you'll likely have to play around the SP Little Knight, the Ambler Whale, and probably 1 or 2 hand traps. If you're using Soul Release against Labyrinth, it's actually not that bad because you force them to use Rollback or Big Welcomes effects in graveyard before they might want to, and of course you can also get rid of the furniture cards in the graveyard too, which stop them from recurring the resources very easily. As for Voiceless Voice and Branded, a lot of what they try to do is recur resources from the graveyard. If you can banish those resources, it makes it a lot harder for them to protect themselves and summon back powerful monsters. But let's be honest, you're only going to play Soul Release against a fire-based deck in the format. But what if you don't like Soul Release or you want to play something even better? Well, Shaddoll Fusion is one of the single best ways to beat a Fire King endboard with just 1 card. It does require that you play 2 pseudo bricks in the deck and a card in the extra deck, but it is an amazing way of beating almost an entire Snake Eye Fire King board. If you're facing down an endboard of Fire King Island, Fire King Sanctuary, Ambler Whale, Flamberge, IP with a Garunix, a Princess, and a bunch of level 1 fires in the graveyard, usually with a Kieran in hand too, if you can resolve Shaddoll Fusion, you'll be very happy. So what you're going to do is activate Shaddoll Fusion, sending Nail Shaddoll Ariel and Shaddoll Dragon from deck to the graveyard to summon El Shaddoll App Cologne, which requires 2 Shaddolls with different attributes. On the summon, you have 3 Chainlinks to order. Chainlink 1 is Ariel, which targets 3 cards in the graveyard and banishes them. You need to target Garunix, Princess, and the last one isn't that important, but I'd like to get rid of a level 1 fire, but it also depends on what's in their graveyard, so use your judgment. Chainlink 2 is Shaddoll Dragon, which targets a spell or trap and destroys it, so you'll target Island, which will then in a new chain destroy all their monsters. Now they do have a Sanctuary on the field to protect it, but this is why you almost always use App Cologne as Chainlink 3. When it's special summoned, you can target a face-up card on the field and negate its effects permanently. So you target the Sanctuary, and now it can no longer protect the island from destruction. The most important part of ordering these chainlinks is going to be that App Cologne always happens as a chainlink higher than Dragon. If you go App Cologne 1, Dragon 2, that accomplishes nothing, because Sanctuary can still protect the island. But that isn't the end of it. Because you special summoned a monster, your opponent can activate the effect of Princess in the graveyard to destroy your monster and a fire they control to summon it. And this is their only chance to do so, because if the chain resolves, the Princess gets banished. So let's assume they activate the Princess, destroy their Whale and your app Cologne. Fire King Island gets destroyed, and the Garunix and the other card you targeted with Ariel get banished too. Now all of this will force a new chain to be started, with Chainlink 1 always being Fire King Island because it's a mandatory effect to destroy all monsters they control. You can then use App Cologne to add a Shaddoll card from deck or graveyard to hand, but if they have SP on field, I personally wouldn't activate it. If they attempt to use Whale to summon back a link 3 or lower, or Flamber's Dragon if they linked off with IP, then sure they can summon back whatever they'd like, but the chain will resolve and destroy everything before they can activate their effects in a new chain. It isn't a perfect solution, but there is no such thing as a perfect solution against this deck. They can kind of play around it a little bit by just letting the Flamber's Dragon get destroyed by the Fire King Island, which will trigger the effect to summon back something like the Poplar and the Ash from the graveyard, which means they can get follow-up for the next turn. The reason they can do this is because through their main combo, they end up sending 3 level 1 fire monsters to the graveyard, which means that Flamber's Dragon will always trigger even if you manage to DD Crow one of them. And because it's more important to get rid of the Garunix and the Princess, you almost always end up leaving enough cards in the graveyard for them to summon back with a copy of Flamber's Dragon. And either way, just for resolving one copy of Shaddoll Fusion, you end up getting rid of so much. You get rid of their pop with Princess, of their pop with Whale, of the summon back of Garunix, and therefore the pop with Kirin. You also get rid of the IP turning into SP, and you get rid of their island for follow-up as well. I can almost guarantee that that is the best way to use one singular card to beat an entire Fire King board. Now, Soul Release and Shaddoll Fusion are really nice, but what are some more obscure tech cards? Well, I want to shout out Burning Draw and Magical Spring. These two cards are very similar. They let you draw a bunch of cards to find the cards you need to break the board, but they both come with heavy restrictions, which is likely why they aren't as well known. Magical Spring is a quick play that you can use in the draw phase. It lets you draw one card for every face-up spell and trap card your opponent controls, which will usually be 3. The Island, the Sanctuary, and the IP. You then discard one card for every face-up spell and trap card you control, including itself, so it ends up being a +1 in card advantage, but you dig 3 cards deeper into your deck to find more blowouts against the strategy. The trade-off is that until the end of your opponent's next turn, spells and traps they control can't be destroyed or have their activation or effects negated. Now that doesn't matter too much if you're looking for cards like Cosmic Cyclone to get rid of the Island, for example, and it's because it's a quick play spell that you can use it in the draw phase to play around Droll and Lockbird. It's also a very strong card against Voiceless Voice because they usually have Barrier and Radiance on their side of the field as well, which means you can draw 2 more cards and discard 1. On the other hand is Burning Draw. This is also a very simple card, where if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can target a link monster they control and draw cards equal to its link rating. So you target the Whale and you draw 4 cards. Now you might be saying, why isn't everyone playing this card? Well, it's because you can only normal or special summon fire monsters the turn you activate it, so it's only good in a fire mirror match. Now listen, I love Yu-Gi-Oh, but it is unfortunate that some of the best tech cards in the game right now just so happen to be Floodgates. Summon Limit, Magic Deflector, and Vanity's Fiend are all amazing against Snake Eye Fire King, but are usually going to be at their best when going first. One of the easiest ways to steal a game from a Snake Eye player is to flip Summon Limit after they summon Poplar or chain it to the activation of Snake Eye Ash or original Sinful Spoils. Unless they have spell and trap removal or a way to destroy Kirin, it's very likely their turn will just end. Magic Deflector is also an incredibly simple card, where for the rest of the turn, you negate the effects of all field, quick play, continuous, and equip spells while they're on the field. It's not always going to be a perfect card because they can still activate Bonfire and original Sinful Spoils, but Wanted, the field spell, and any random side deck cards being shut down is huge. And it's also very good against Voiceless Voice, Branded, and Runic decks as well. Vanity's Fiend is a tech card that's almost exclusively being played in Kashtira. If you can stick a Vanity's Fiend, there are so few decks that have an in-archetype way to get rid of it, and it's one of the other reasons why Kashtira is one of the best anti-fire decks along with Dimension Shifter. Ultimate Slayer and Super Polymerization are 2 really solid options as tech cards against the format today, especially against Fire King. The reason they're tech cards is because not every deck can actually play them. I mean, they can, but most decks need the extra deck space for other cards. Being able to shuffle a monster back into the deck without being responded to, or getting rid of half of a Snake Eye player's end board without worrying about what most cards are going to do against you is really why these cards are seeing play. But I've seen players throw 3 Super Poly with a Garura and a Mud Dragon into their side deck as their main way of dealing with Snake Eye Fire King. Another tech card that's becoming a lot more popular nowadays is going to be Monster Reborn. Yeah, I'm not kidding, it's an amazing card in this format if you're playing Fire yourself, and it's even better in the mirror match. We've always considered Monster Reborn to be a bit of a slower card ever since it got unbanned, but it's really good for a few reasons. Firstly, it allows you to play through Interruption on your first turn. If you get ashed at the wrong time, you can always bring back the monster and keep extending from there. If you get nibbed, you can always bring something back and rebuild your board. But where it really shines is in the mirror match. If you're going second, one of the best plays is to reborn your opponent's princess. This does 2 things for you. First, it gets your plays going by accessing another pseudo Monster Reborn type card, and second is that it gets it out of their graveyard, meaning they can't use the effect of Whale or of Princess to pop a card. And let's be honest, there are so many other decks this format that don't want to have to deal with their graveyard being disrupted. Monster Reborn is becoming so good that it's even seeing some play in main decks. Agave Dragon is seeing play in multiple side decks. Unless this was a joke between friends and they all topped, the only reason I can think of it being played is for time. Basically, when it's link summoned, you activate 4 effects in sequence based on the number of monsters with specific types in the graveyards. The 2 most important effects of this card are going to be that you inflict 100 life points for each dragon in the graveyard, and gain 400 life points for each worm in the graveyard. Flamberge just so happens to be a dragon type monster, meaning it's a way to get the life point lead without having to play any main deck bricks. Other common side deck cards for niche situations are going to be Volcanic Scattershot paired with either Sprite Sprind or the OG Fire King Avatar Kirin. I don't think these are super special secret techs, but they are niche enough that you have to know of them, especially when you're playing at a higher level event. Let's finish up with a quick rapid fire. Artifact Lancia stops banishing, which helps Fire King play on their opponent's turn. Foolish Return is a worse version of DD Crow, but at least it doesn't trigger Thrust or Talents. Solemn Strike is a great way to negate the effects of Ash or Oak when they try and summon Flamberge Dragon, or honestly anything in the format. And Psyframe Gear Delta is seeing play usually at 2 copies with 1 copy of Psyframe Gear Gamma as a way to stop the powerful spells in the format today. And that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you know any other tech cards that I didn't mention, make sure to comment them down below, and also, because you made it this far in the video, you must have enjoyed it, so do me a favor and hit the like button. If this video gets 200 likes, I'll make it a regular part of my content rotation, and I'll also bring you the ultimate guide to the best side deck cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Today. Follow me on Twitter and join the Discord server, both are linked in the description, and of course subscribe to the channel as well. We are so close to our goal of 7,500 subscribers and we can't get there without your help. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time.